Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Peridiam, and welcome to the Final Six.
You know what, Jeff? I don't know what the hell is going on tonight, but I don't trust anybody here, so.
I'll have another one. A red one. I would like to play from Aubrey.
I got it!
This is a hidden immunity idol.
This is not
A hidden immunity idol.
It is a work of art, but it has no value in this game.
The Final Six in Survivor has led to several of the most unforgettable votes in several decades of the show. Between Cambodia to Game Changers, Micronesia to... well, let's just get into it. In this video, I want to put the spotlight on one particular kind of vote that has occurred in Survivor several times, but overall is quite rare, yet I consider it to be one of the most impressive moves ever pulled off. I am talking about the eponymous 3-2-1 vote that can occur when 6 votes are being cast. Mind you, I'm saying 6 votes, not necessarily 6 people due to advantages and shenanigans in modern Survivor, though I do find handling 5 other people a little more impressive than someone having 2 votes. Survivor is a game largely about the vote. It's the most pivotal mechanic in the game, eliminating players from the board, furthering the journey to reach the end. A good majority of the vote outcomes tend to be performed with majorities in mind. You have 7 people voting, so you just need 4 votes to seize the day. 9 people voting, 5 votes. A simple majority is often all that's needed, especially in the early days of the show when idols and advantages either didn't exist or were just less prevalent. But every so often, you don't need a majority. For whatever reason. Rogue votes, splinter factions, mind games. Instead of a majority, you only need a plurality. A plurality vote in Survivor is when someone gets voted out without receiving a majority of the votes. So if you have 7 people voting, someone could leave only receiving 3 votes if, say, the other 4 votes were split 2-2. Interestingly, on the flip side, we have never seen a winner win the game with a plurality despite it being possible since season 13. Also, fun fact, the very first vote ever was decided on a plurality.
Stacy, tough call. Subtle reasons.
That's 3 for Sonia and 3 for Rudy. First person voted off the island. Sonia.
I bring all of this up to talk about one of the most well-regarded plurality vote masterstrokes in Survivor, the 3-2-1. In this video, I'll not only be breaking down how it first happened, but the history of it happening throughout the show. So, like I said, let's get into it. As far as my knowledge extends, the first known instance of the 3-2-1 vote ever being discussed was during Survivor Guatemala, season 11, from Brian Corden at the final 12. At this point in the season, there were still 2 tribes, each having 6 players, and Brian attempted to pull off the first ever 3-2-1 vote to take out Bobby John. However, it obviously didn't work out, as Brian was voted out 5-1, and thus this little bit of trivia is only best served for the DVD commentary. That said, in the very next season, Survivor Panama Exile Island, we saw the 3-2-1 vote not only be considered, but also executed flawlessly at the final 6. A move pulled off by the one and only Cirie Fields in her first outing. Cirie made one of the coolest moves I have ever seen. It was the final 6 of the season, and the tribe dynamic was 5 versus 1. Everyone versus Terry, the challenge beast. Of course, Terry also had a super idol and 1 immunity, go figure, so he was out of contention. This was the first time the Kasaya 5 had to actually turn on each other, so where do they go? Terry proposed Aris get voted out. Aris was the next best physical threat. Courtney was absolutely on board. These two, Terry and Courtney, also believed Danielle and Cirie were also on board, though Cirie definitely wasn't. She was really good friends with Aris. Suri observed that of the 6 remaining players, at least 2 of them wanted to take Courtney to the final 2. Terry, Shane, and maybe even Danielle. This made Courtney the most valuable player as she was taking up one of the 2 finalist spots and was at the time a near lock to be there if several other players had their way. Suri giggled and then realized, why not just take Courtney out now? Everyone can beat her in the end, but then Suri could probably also beat everyone else. She didn't need Courtney to win Survivor. And given Terry was sort of this final boss, what better way to weaken him than take out his newly forged #1 ally?
Shane wants to take Courtney to the final 2. He's told me that. Terry wants to take Courtney to the final 2. That, to me, makes Courtney the most dangerous person out here. I want to kind of mess up Terry's plans and mess up Shane's plans, and hopefully we get rid of Courtney next.
While Terry and Courtney were ready to vote out Aris, Suri approached Aris and Danielle and informed them of all of this, and that Courtney had to go next. Aris was, of course, on board. I mean, everyone else wanted to vote him out, but Danielle wasn't 100% sure just yet. Danielle didn't want to give Terry an inch, and Suri played into that fear that if Terry had Courtney in the final 5, alongside Shane still being in the game, he also wanted Courtney around too. Both Suri and Danielle would be stuck in a corner once Aris left. Meanwhile, Shane Powers, off on his own little island, believed everyone in Kasaya was voting out Danielle. He had a good relationship with Aris too, and he wanted Danielle out, so that's what he believed was the plan. Suri even recognizes they only need a plurality to seize the day. They don't even need a majority. It's pretty amazing.
Me, you, and Aris vote Courtney because Shane is going to vote you. Terry and Courtney are going to vote Aris, and me, you, and Aris are going to vote Courtney. I'm absolutely positive. That's why you have to let Courtney think that me, you, her, and Terry are going to vote Aris.
For only 6 people, it all does sound kind of confusing, huh? Now imagine this, everything I just said, every single vote without it being boiled and distilled down to just A or B. Handling so many different perspectives and best moves and opposing game plans from other players is a lot. Mind you, Danielle does get convinced by Suri, and the vote goes off without a hitch. A perfect 3-2-1 vote split, where 3 votes in a tribe of 6 managed to remove the biggest goat left in the game. 3 votes for Courtney, 2 votes for Aris, 1 vote for Danielle. It is masterful, as it relies on Suri convincing Terry and Courtney one plan, Shane another plan, and then Aris and Danielle a completely different plan. And this is only with 6 people. Having her hands in so many honeypots, she manages to have all of the information and use it to her advantage.
Courtney. That's 2 votes Courtney, 2 votes Aris, 1 vote Danielle. The 11th person voted out of Survivor Exile Island.
It took 14 seasons later, even longer than it took for the first time to see the 3-2-1 come up, to see the 3-2-1 play out again. At the final 6 of Survivor Caramoan season 26, we saw John Cochran also pull off the 3-2-1 that Suri executed a while back, and in a similar fashion. He too was placed in a 5 versus 1 dynamic, everyone in his alliance versus Eddie, and it seemed like an easy vote. It didn't even really matter where Eddie voted in this case. He didn't have an idol and he had no allies. He was kind of like the Shane in this situation. But then Cochran wondered if the easy vote to get rid of Eddie was the right move. Sort of the opposite of Suri targeting Courtney, Cochran targeted Brenda because she was the biggest threat to him to win. And he was right, as Brenda wanted to take out Cochran at the final 6, but decided to wait 1 more vote to make her move.
I think that it's a straightforward vote tonight. Eddie's going home, and after Eddie, the plan is to take out Cochran. In my head, it's the perfect plan. If we can just stick to it, everything will go amazing.
Cochran realized Brenda and Eric were voting out Eddie, and Eddie wasn't voting for himself, meaning there were already 2 votes going one way and 1 vote going another. His #1 ally, Dawn, as well as Sherry, were all ears on making a final 3 pact, and thus it became a simple matter of deciding whether to flip on Brendan now at the final 6 or wait until the final 5.
Can I guess what your scenario is going to be?
Sure.
Blindside Brenda tonight.
Yeah.
Because she would never see it coming. I was already there.
It is the perfect move because tonight is the perfect night to make it. If Brenda had one more day in this game, she could upset everything. She would win at the final tribal council. I'm making sure that doesn't happen.
Unlike Brenda, Cochran went ahead and pulled the trigger, voting her out in a 3-2-1 vote split where, again, a majority was never needed. From this point on, we saw several more 3-2-1 vote splits manifest themselves. I'm not entirely sure why they began to pop up more at this point in the history of Survivor, but the next time we saw one was at the final 13 of Survivor San Juan del Sur 3 seasons later. It was during the tribe swap after Kelly Wentworth was voted out when her father, Dale Wentworth, was all alone on a tribe of 6. He was surrounded by 2 duos, John and Jacqueline and Missy and Baylor, as well as Keith, the lone man with an idol in his pocket. Now, this 3-2-1 is different than the previous 2 in that it had 4 people controlling the votes instead of 3. The 2 duos chose to split the vote, 2 for Dale, 2 for Keith, in the event that one of the guys played an idol. Dale wanted to target Missy, and he thought he might have John and Jacqueline on board, but it turned out he didn't. Dale was also looking to pull off a potential 3-2-1 as he knew the duos were splitting the votes 2-2. He just happened to be on the wrong side of them. Keith was also told to vote for Dale, and he happily obliged, meaning we had 3 votes for Dale, 2 for Keith, and 1 for Missy. Voila.
Dale, we're tied. 2 votes Dale, 2 votes Keith, 1 vote Missy. 1 vote left. 6th person voted out of blood versus water.
And then 1 season later, we saw almost the exact same dynamic happen at the final 17 of Survivor Worlds Apart. It was the no-caller tribe with Joey Amazing, Jen, Haley, Nina, Vince, the coconut vendor, and master strategist 40 backgammon player Will Sims. There was an alliance of 4 with Joe, Jen, Haley, and Will, and they wanted to split the votes 2-2 between Nina and Vince. But Will was considering going rogue. He was open to working with Nina and Vince to take a 3-2 majority in the tribe, but then he learned that Vince was surprisingly randomly targeting Will, and yeah, that changed things for him. Although, amusingly, Will still did go rogue, but it was to target Vince directly instead of forcing a 2-2 tie. Will was supposed to vote for Nina, but he switched it to Vince to make it a 3-2-1 instead of a 2-2-2. Now, if Vince did have an idol and he played it on himself, this would have meant Jen went home, which actually kind of reminds me of Tyson flipping his vote in Survivor Heroes vs. Villains, where he was voted out. Now, I don't know the intricacies of the no-caller tribe, but I will say it just goes to show how when basically the same move works, it's looked upon a little bit highly, but when it doesn't, well...
Did I trust you guys? It was to the point where I didn't know who to trust. To me, with having a tribal council, you got to think ahead, and I didn't trust Vince. So I just prolonged my chances in this game. That's what it's all about. I'm playing chess, not checkers.
And then why not keep the momentum going? In the very next season, Survivor Cambodia, we saw Monica Padilla get voted out at the final 16 in another 3-2-1 vote in the pre-merge. This was executed by the trio of Jeremy, Steven, and Kimmy, who had formed strong bonds with Spencer and Kelly Wigglesworth over Monica. The 3 of them decided to vote out Monica, but didn't inform Spencer or Kelly about this. Because Spencer and Kelly knew one of them were going to be targeted, they each decided to vote for the other, and Monica decided to go with the wrong plan of voting for Kelly, when in fact she was the target. Also, I just want to say a little bit insider behind the scenes. It's worth noting Steven actually did tell Spencer about the 3-2-1 plan beforehand, but I guess Spencer just went with it for good TV. And then we come full circle to the final 6 of Survivor Game Changers, also known as Advantage Geddon or the Idol Apocalypse, or one of the most heartbreaking eliminations I have ever seen. Sari, again, gets wiped off the map due to 3 idols being played, the Legacy Advantage coming into play, and nobody else being eligible to receive votes. But before all that happened, there was actually a 3-2-1 vote split in play. But again, unlike any of the previous 3-2-1 vote splits in the history of Survivor, this one is kind of cheating in that it didn't require as much effort, in my opinion, as most of the others. Basically, how it went, Sarah, Brad, and Troyzan had a final 3 pact, and they each knew they were safe. Brad had immunity from the challenge, Sarah told them about her legacy advantage, and Troyzan told them about his idol. They realized all of a sudden all of them were immune, and thus none of them could get voted out. So, hey, you know what? Let's just have a field day with this one. A Surrey field day with this one.
I have an idol which I can play either tonight or the next tribal council, which makes me feel safe. So I feel like I'm in a good place, but we got stuff to do. We have to win immunities, we have to play immunity idols, we have to be smart. Here's the Brad Culpepper.
They also knew that Ty had at least one idol, so the three of them decided to capitalize on their immunity by splitting their 3 votes between Ty and Aubrey. 2 for Ty, 1 for Aubrey. That way, if Ty plays an idol on himself, Aubrey goes, and if he doesn't, he goes. They realized it didn't matter who the other 3 players, Aubrey, Ty, and Suri, were voting for. One of them had to be leaving because not all of them were going to be immune. That said, Aubrey, Ty, and Suri all voted for Sarah, but she had the legacy advantage, so it didn't matter. And apparently Sarah even told Ty she had this advantage, the legacy advantage, earlier in the game. He just somehow forgot about it. So yeah, that's basically the advantage getting in a nutshell.
Suri, it doesn't matter what votes are in the urn, because the only person who can receive votes
Me.
is you.
And those are the 3-2-1 vote splits in the history of Survivor. And if you're counting, that's only been 6 ever in all of the iterations of final 6s or 6 people voting in tribal council. Only 6 of these votes have ever happened. They're really rare. Mind you, we have also seen this split play out in international Survivor, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and I would strongly recommend checking those seasons out if you can, because they have some great seasons of Survivor in stow. Either way, that is going to be the 3-2-1 vote split in Survivor. What do you guys think about this move? Could you ever pull it off? It's one of my favorite potential outcomes of any vote, and every time we get to a final 6 in a season, I always kind of hope to see it play out one more time, but like I've been saying, it's pretty rare. Regardless, my name is Peridiam, saying thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned a little bit of something about Survivor while watching it. Don't forget, you are splitting the vote, not the check, on the way out, and I will see you in the next one once I take one more stroll down memory lane. Oh, is this supposed to be the end of the video? I'm still talking. Why am I still talking? Let's keep talking. While not a 3-2-1 split, one of my favorite votes of all time happened at the final 9 of Survivor Ghost Island. Instead of a 3-2-1, it was a 2-2-1-1, almost a 3-2-1, when the tribes were divided in half, 5 on one side, 5 on the other. We had a half tribe with Wendell, Dominic, Laurel, Kellen, and Michael. But Kellen actually had a second vote, meaning we had 6 votes up in the air. Everyone wanted Michael out, but they were afraid he might have an idol. So what do?
It feels like things are more dangerous now than they ever have been.
Tonight, if we can do this, I'm with you for the long haul.
And I haven't
I'm with you for the long haul. If this happens, I'm dead serious.
Wendell and Dom were voting Michael, even if he had an idol. They just kind of had to. They had to put their votes on him. But Kellen was spooked that he might have one and play it, and decided in the event that he did have an idol, she would cast 1 vote for Michael and 1 vote for Laurel. This meant the final vote would be 4-1-1. 4 votes for Michael, 1 vote for Laurel, and 1 vote for whoever Michael decided to vote for, in this case, Wendell. Kellen wanted Wendell to stay over Laurel, so why not cast a vote for Laurel?
So are we willing to sacrifice Laurel if he does have that idol?
Kellen, who gets super emotional, wants to place a vote on Laurel, but she doesn't know that Laurel happens to be my ally.
Wendell then took this information and relayed it to Laurel, getting her to switch her vote to Kellen, meaning it would now be a 3-1-1-1.
So if he pulls out an idol, then what happens?
If you voted for Kellen, then she goes home.
And if I didn't, then I go home.
But then Kellen gets spooked and decided to take her Michael vote and cast it a second time on Laurel, meaning it was now 2-2, 1-1. So Laurel for sure would go home if Michael played his idol. Bear in mind, Michael didn't have an idol. Likewise, through all of the confusion and votes going every which way on the revote, Kellen forgot to vote a second time with her extra vote. If you're following the numbers, which I don't blame you if you aren't, 4 votes should have been cast in the revote, but instead only 3 were. Amazing. Ultimately, in the end, this furthered a major rift between Laurel and Kellen that only served to aid Wendell and Dom down the line, and all because of a little bit of idol paranoia and a little bit of a conversations happening on the side with Wendell. It's not a 3-2-1, but it is really close to it. It is in spirit, largely thanks to Wendell's master stroke of having the girls go after each other as a backup plan. So good. And now we're done.
That's 2 votes Michael, 1 vote Wendell, 1 vote Laurel, 1 vote Kellen, 1 vote left. Laurel, we're tied.